So hi there, and thank you so much for attending the Suffering from Chronic Pelvic Pain, Find Your Way to Heal and Feel Good workshop, given in collaboration with Intimage, la thérapie par les arts, and the Kinatex Centre de Santé Pelvienne. My name again is Andrea Cook. I had the pleasure of being able to present a little bit about how to cope with some of the symptoms, the physical, and a lot of the mental health feelings, emotions, and reactions that come up as you struggle with this condition. And so I invite you now not only to thank those of you that could make it, but also for those of you that couldn't, to just have a little bit of a synopsis of what it is that we went over, and to let all of you know you are always welcome to contact me with any questions, to clarify anything, to understand a little bit more about what it is that you're facing and how art therapy can help. So I invite you to contact me. You can reach me by email at andrea.cook@intimage.ca, and you're welcome to visit the website at www.intimage.ca. You can also follow it on the screen here. And so here we go, a little bit about what we covered yesterday. So we started just unwrapping a few of some of the feelings that come up and some of the struggles and the frustrations in dealing with pelvic pain. And sometimes there's embarrassment, frustration, sometimes it can lead to depression, anxiety. And then we went on a little bit further to look at just how many people in the population have actually suffer with chronic pelvic pain. And then we talked a little bit more about what to do when seeking treatment. And so one of the suggestions that I had is ask yourself a few questions before you seek medical treatment, which are one of the first ones: what's more important, the physical symptoms or the mental symptoms, or both? Or is it hard to distinguish the two? And that can guide you a little bit when you meet either with your family doctor, with a gynecologist, whichever specialist it is that you seek first. And another good question to ask is if they're familiar that both the mental health and the physical have an impact on each other. And then underneath all of this, the most important thing is to trust yourself. Nobody knows your body better than you. And so some medical professionals may not understand what it is that you're suffering from. They may think it's all mental health in your head. They may think it's just the physical. They may not take into consideration the full picture, but you are the best gauge of your body and how you feel. And if you feel that there isn't something right and you're not getting the right kind of treatment and somebody's not taking you seriously in your first appointment, then get a second opinion. Yeah, trust yourself. Yeah. And so then we continued, and I gave a list of some types of specialists, and I invite you to contact me to get a little bit more. But that for the physical symptoms and the pain management, physiotherapists are an excellent choice. There are also other people who can help, acupuncturists, osteotherapists, many more. Massage therapy can also be a part of this process. These are services that the Pelvic Health Clinic, the Kinatex Pelvic Health Clinic, do offer because it's a multidisciplinary approach, and there's many different types of specialists that work under the same banner to provide you the most diverse and best care. Then we went on to discuss a little bit more about some of the mental health professionals. And so people who can really help with this condition, creative arts therapists like myself. You also have sexologists, psychologists, and other psychotherapists. And then I recommended that people who are particularly familiar with trauma, the mind-body connection, and how we feel about ourselves and our identity in our relationships, in our sexual selves. These are all really good things to look for when you're getting help. And then I presented a little bit about how the mind and body connection work. There's a cycle in which simply the pain comes online. And then not only that, our bodies engage. We start to go into intense emotional reaction. I go into fight or flight mode. I start to get really tense up in my body, and my sensations are really, really hitting my emotions. And so what happens is our sensations, our bodily sensations and our emotions are very, very quickly linked. And when one happens, ding, the other one comes online automatically. And so the emotions that could be happening, right, are fear. I don't want this pain to stop. I want to get away. I want to run away. Yeah. And so then we talked about how those feelings feed back into your body, and then your body responds in kind. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail. You're welcome to communicate with me to get a little bit more information about that. Everybody that did have the chance to attend received a My Body map to be able to actually go in and visually see and organize what happens in your own mind-body cycle. And this is something that if you seek art therapy, you would also do for yourselves in a much more supported, more in-depth way, just depending on the way that things come to you and your unique cycle and what you're struggling with, that pain and how you feel about it and how it affects yourself, how that cycle comes online. And then we went on in the presentation, to go on and talk a little bit about some examples. I gave some examples of what clients' artwork would look like, how that manifests in a visual way, exploring the mind-body cycle. And so again, if you're interested in some examples, I encourage you to get in touch with me. I can certainly go through that with you a little bit. And then we went on to talk about what impacts this cycle, and then the feelings of embarrassment, shame, how they can impact your relationships and other aspects of your life. And yeah, we talked about one of the really common ones is whenever we're suffering with pain, and especially pelvic pain, because we do live in a culture where it's really hard to talk about these things. Women's reproduction, women's sexuality has for a really long time been something sort of discouraged in talking about, especially in the medical communities and sometimes amongst ourselves, that we find it so challenging to even put words to. And so in our relationships, this happens too. And then when it's coupled with the pain and how we're feeling maybe negatively in our bodies, we're just not sure sometimes even about what's going on, then we have a tendency to withdraw from our relationships and from our partners, to just not even engage because that feeling gets so intense. Yeah. And that also we talked a little bit about how this cycle, right, takes a lot of energy. And so when you're expending that kind of energy all the time, feeling stressed in this tense mode, it's also really tiring. Yeah, and that affects your family relationships, being able to care for your loved ones. You might find yourself feeling a little more short with people. And yeah, there's this general fatigue, and it's a very real part of it. And so you get assistance by looking at how the mental health patterns affect your physical symptoms in order to be able to feel better and cope with things as they come online. Yeah. And then lastly, we talked also about how isolating this condition can feel. Again, I'm just briefly going back and touching upon culturally how challenging it is to have these conversations sometimes, and how just putting them into words really feels so foreign. Yeah, and so many women struggling with pelvic pain, when they come and see me, they share how they've never spoken to anyone about this ever before. This is the first time, and that they find it really hard to talk about. Yeah. And that how lovely to be able to work in the context of art therapy, because instead of going directly into the words, we don't have to. You can go into the artwork. We can go into indirect ways of looking at these things until words start to make sense, and until things feel safe and comfortable, and you find your own language. You find your own language that works. Yeah. And then on the other side of that, there are 13 to 24, actually, let me just double check that statistic. 14 to 32% of women worldwide struggle with some form of pelvic pain, and that can be chronic. Yeah. And so there are actually quite a few women who are with you who may be struggling with this condition, but it feels so alone because we're not talking about it with other people, and it's hard to find resources. Yeah. And so then I finished the group by just checking in and seeing who might be interested in doing a group art therapy. Because art therapy, like I said, especially in this context, can really bring women together who may have been feeling really alone and isolated with this condition. Yeah, and there's so much richness and community building to be learned from each other and share these experiences. So if that's something that interests you, please contact me again. In the comments, you'll have ways to get in touch with me. Yeah, and so then at the very end, I also went on and just gave an example of how you can feel good in yourself, and it is possible. and engaging in that creative language with the support of an art therapist, you can actually go in and really make sense of what you want, how you want to be close with your partner, but what's holding you back, and how to set your limits, and then also how to communicate where you want to be and where you don't want to be with a partner. Yeah, in a safe way that's invitational. Yeah. And so that is the presentation. And that's what we covered yesterday in the chronic pelvic pain workshop. And so I also operate and see clients out of the Kinatex Pelvic Health Clinic in Point Claire. You are welcome to book with me there. I encourage you to reach out and get in touch with any questions that you may have. And it was a real pleasure to meet some of you yesterday, and it's a real pleasure to be able to provide this short synopsis for those of you that couldn't be there. I want to thank you again, and I wish you a lovely day.